First up this hour in the program, as fires continue to burn across the province, municipal officials are already taking a look back at how fire situations were handled. From West Kelowna to the Shuswap and up through the north, the scenes were very different. This week, mayors and managers from across the province have been meeting in Vancouver. It's for the annual meeting of BC municipalities. Mark Parker is the chair of the Bulkley-Nechako Regional District. He spoke on a panel about wildfire response. Let's have a listen to part of his conversation about that panel conversation with Daybreak North host Carolina DeRike.
I think the province needs to start to be able to support these societies if they get organized, and it's but to start with, it's going to take the residents. They need to take this and look at it and not sort of deal with it, because you hear that when it's in the heat of the fire, like that there's concern, but then winter comes and all of a sudden it kind of and next thing you know, it doesn't happen. So I think making sure that the residents take that responsibility, organize themselves, and then once they're organized, the province can support that through providing equipment, having caches of water trailers, water pumps, and let us start to be a part of the solution to get these fires under control before they get going.
So that's Mark Parker, the chair of the Bulkley-Nechako Regional District. Parker talked about residents taking the initiative for wildfire response in his region. Well, two of those residents are on the line with us now. Mike Robertson and Scott Zayac work with a group called the Chinook Emergency Response Society. It's based at the south side of Francois Lake, and we reached them by Zoom earlier today.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Scott, let's start with you. Tell us about how and why your group got started.
Sure. So during the summer of 2018, wildfires swept through the areas south of Francois Lake as well as the northwest of Francois Lake. There were prolonged evacuation orders, and a majority of the people evacuated, but there were a few people who stayed behind to protect structures and their livelihoods. In the winter of 2018, the community got together as a response to what happened that summer and formed the society.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, what about you? Tell us about your experience and what brought you to this, being part of this group as well.
Well, the south side is a vast area in our area of Area E Regional District, Bulkley-Nechako. It's 16,000 square kilometers, and our population is around 1,600 people. So it's a very sparsely vast area that is largely unprotected, and we don't have the financial or human resources to protect such an area, but we knew by mobilizing the residents of the area, we could provide a service to protect ourselves, meaning we needed eyes on the ground and feet on the ground when a fire is reported or breaks out, or even a sniff of smoke. We could respond. And that was kind of the impetus for CERS to deal with emergency situations in such a semi-remote, sparsely populated area with poor communications. We have very little internet or cell service here too.
But your group is organized. This is. Tell us a little bit more about what sets the Chinook Emergency Response Society apart from, say, people in the heat of a fire kind of choosing to stay behind or not and rallying around when it's happening. How is your group organized? I don't know who wants to take that question. Scott?
Sure.
Yeah.
So our society is organized, as you said. We're not a firefighting entity. Our three priorities are communication, education, and coordination. And we've been working for 4.5 years on this. And so, as Mike said, not in the heat of the moment. We work on training before the fire season, whether it's S100, S185 training for people, or Fire Smart, or wildfire preparedness events. All happen before any potential emergencies, hopefully. In terms of communication systems, having email and phone lists already set up, having a Facebook page and website and newsletters going out, talking to organizations like the Southside Volunteer Fire Department and the Regional District and BC Wildfire Service building those relationships before there's an emergency. So there's a process and communication that can happen when an emergency does happen.
And how does that actually work? Because Mark Parker was talking about how your group works with BC Wildfire Service, but also I don't know how that works. He says that your group helped put out like 22 fires. Can you explain that?
Comment on that. We, in partnership with Rio Tinto and the Cheslatta Carrier Nation, we purchased and outfitted 9 little cargo trailers, essentially equipped with a water tank, pumps, hoses, tools, and those are stationed throughout the area of our community. And when somebody sees a fire or reports a fire, people just hook onto those trailers and respond. And compatible to that is the property owners, farmers, ranchers, and residents of the area. Most of them have their own equipment as well, and mobile equipment of tanks, very rudimentary equipment, but that's all you need. When you see a fire, you want to put it out before it gets going. So this year we responded to over 24 of those instances that left unattended would have turned into massive fires. So the effectiveness that we've proven over the years here is it's not rocket science. It's people protecting the property, their neighbor's property, and the natural resource itself.
And so what goes through your mind? I know that both of you have been speaking with Mark Parker with the Regional District, and one thing he really talks about is empowering residents, using residents who live in an area, who know an area when it comes to fires, because we're only seeing more, they're only getting bigger, they're only getting hotter, and it comes down to resources a lot of the time. So Scott, I'm wondering what goes through your mind when you hear somebody from the Regional District talk about empowering residents more?
Well, I think it's pretty well established that the province doesn't have the resources to fight all of the starts. And that's not a criticism. July 6th and 7th of this year, there were 14 starts in our area. And that's just the Regional District Electoral Area E. There were dozens of other starts in the Lakes District. BCWS doesn't have the resources to hit all of those fires in an initial attack capacity. So it's critical that the community is well trained, has the proper communication, has the safety equipment, as well as other firefighting equipment to take that on. And there are a lot of community members that are willing to volunteer their time and do that. Let's put in systems that they can do it safely and effectively and work with BCWS, because they are doing their best under very trying situations. Let's work together on this.
And so you, as mentioned, have been working with BC Wildfire Service. I was wondering what was going through each of your minds when you saw the fires happening further to the south this summer, especially in the shoe shop. There were tensions and people were frustrated and wanted to be able to stay behind. What was and the framework has already been laid out by the work that your group does. Like the BC Wildfire Service has worked with the Chinook Emergency Group, as you said, 4 years ago, and here we are 4 years later. What was going through your mind as you saw what was happening?
Well, it's sad to see once again what happened in areas to the south, but we try to keep it from getting to that stage with our initial response network up here. And it is rural-based. We're not firefighters, as Scott said. We attacked a fire as soon as there's smoke in the air. And that is absolute number one importance. Once the fire gets to a stage that it's out of our control, there's other agencies and local contractors that take it from there. But our goal and our success rate has been, don't let it get to that stage, is put it out before it becomes a major event.
Are there lessons learned, do you think, in other regions of the province that could be learned from the work that you're doing? Scott?
Well, I think, we're an inspiration that other communities could adapt. We've all learned a lot of lessons. We have, again, a very vast area. And if what we're doing here is working at our level, it'll work anywhere in the province. And all we need is a little support and recognition from the government. Keep the bureaucracy to a minimum, support groups like CERS in the formation of themselves, helping them establish communication links. The training programs should be offered regularly to all communities free of charge. We're always scrambling for firefighting courses, and they're expensive. And those should be offered to us. Surplus equipment could be allocated, allowing us to increase our capacity. So there's a lot of things the government can do with very minimal investment that would save the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars and the natural resource.
And Scott, do you think there's an appetite for the kind of knowledge that you're offering elsewhere in the province?
I think there is. I know that there's a expert task force being set up by the province to look at what's happened this year. There's a lot of media attention and there's a lot of discussions at UBCM this year around how the communities can be better involved. So I think there has to be a change. As you mentioned, the wildfire seasons are longer and more fierce, and that's not going to change. So how can we use the resources that are already there, ensure that people have the training and the safety equipment, the communication equipment, so they can do it safely, and make sure they're integrated into BCWS and the regional district and other organizations. So people are working together on this.
Has anybody from the task force called you guys yet?
Not yet.
Are you going to call them?
We're available. All it takes is a phone call.
Yeah.
And I hope the phones work better than yours, Sarah.
We had tried to connect with you yesterday and our phones just died in the middle of the show. So thank you for coming back on the air with us today and taking more time out of your day. But I think this is an important and valuable conversation, and I really appreciate both of your time.
Thank you, Sarah, for the attention that this gives. And we are definitely available. The Chinook Emergency Response Society has a website, and we're more than willing to take inquiries and working with all agencies to spread the word that this is working in our case. It's a diverse operation. We have not only the frontline people that go to a fire outbreak, but there's also the communication people, the people on the road flagging, the people on the phones calling other local residents to, hey, go give a hand. So it's a very diverse operation here, but also it's a very simple and effective operation.
I think it would be, it's also important to remember, I mean, Chinook and the community has done a lot of work on this, but our partners with the regional district, the local regional district staff, as well as the local BC Wildfire Office and the Northwest Fire Center have been incredibly accommodating to sit down, listen to what community members want to have to say, work through issues, sit at the table together and come up with plans. And so they are a part of this as well. They're a part of the success. They're willing to work with the community at a local level. And so a lot of kudos has to go to them as well.
And
yes, and a lot of community support and financial support from Cheslatta Carrier Nation, Rio Tinto Alcan, the Nechako Kitimat Development Fund. All of those groups have supported this financially as well. So we're very grateful to have such a good bunch of partners supporting this, because they know it is working and they want to see it carry on as well, because they're a big part of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both very much for taking the time. I kept you longer than I meant to, but it's such interesting and important news.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
That was our conversation earlier this afternoon with Mike Robertson and Scott Zayac. They work with a group called the Chinook Emergency Response Society based out of the south side of Francois Lake. If you'd like to get in touch with them, find out more about the work that they do, their website's easy. It's chinook-ers.ca. That's chinook-ers.ca.